I hope everyone has a glass of something cold in their hand. Oh, and that would be the managing partner. May I now introduce Tony Fickler. Fantastic cue there, Tony. My name is Kim Kellaway and I am the Head of Clients and Markets at HLB Mann Judd. HLB Mann Judd is a chartered accounting and business advisory firm. We're very lucky and very fortunate to have partnered with BWA, which is Business Women Australia. And I'll tell you a little bit about them. Business Women Australia has come a long way since their humble beginnings in 2008, where they started out as a local group meeting over coffee to share ideas and offer support. Today, hundreds of businesswomen from a mix of backgrounds enjoy the unique opportunity and connections that they've made over the years belonging to this particular community. BWA elevate and celebrate the success of businesswomen in Australia. They believe that every businesswoman can achieve so much by working together. I would also like to introduce my sounding board. My sounding board is one of those wonderful supported groups of collaboration of creating a powerful sharing economy for women in business in our female leaders at HLB Mann Judd. So I would like to introduce to the premium member of Business Women Australia, our panel moderator, Amber Daines. Amber is a former international TV and print journalist turned PR powerhouse and media trainer. She has worked in communications for almost 20 years. As the owner and director of Bespoke Communications, she facilitates small group and individual coaching in media interview and presentation skills for leaders. I recommend you tune into her weekly podcast, The Politics of Everything. Away from her tools, she can be found racing around with her 2 young sons, sampling cheese platters and deciding whether running a marathon at 42 is sensible. Is it sensible? I'd like to hand you over to Amber and to introduce the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a famous quote that most of you in this room would have heard before. It was from Madeleine Albright, and she once famously said, "It is a special place in hell for women who don't help other women." Leadership comes in all sorts of formats, and it's not just about gender or titles or career accolades or even where you are at the stage of your life. But today we have the privilege of hearing from 3 amazing female leaders who have different stories to share, but the same kinds of themes about supporting each other, collaborating, and working out what is the leadership footprint you want to leave when you finish your career or your journey, and how can we learn from each other and help and support each other. So we are very, very lucky here to have, we've got Jodie, we've got Mariana, we've got Danielle, and I might just throw to them very quickly, just to quickly introduce themselves and where they're from, a little sort of 1-minute bio if you like, and then we'll get on with some Q&A. At the end of the Q&A, we'll then open up for audience questions, and I have a roving mic if volumes tend to be a bit of an issue when we're sitting over there. So without further ado, let's introduce our panel with a warm welcome.
So I'm Jodie, as you heard. So I'm a business owner and a mum of 3 small children, which I used to think of as juggling, but someone once pointed out to me that that sounds like an extreme sport. And I think they were right. So in terms of my work life, I run branding agency Tiny Hunter. So we work with a lot of family businesses, helping them define the essence of who they are, but more importantly, why their customers should care. Outside of family business, we're working with clients such as Sydney Airport, New South Wales Health, and Bertolli Olive Oil. Some of the family businesses we're working with are Berenberg, Golden North, Farm Foods, so quite a bit in the FMCG and retail space. So quite a mixed bag in terms of who we work with, but one of the, I guess the consistencies for us is that we work very long term with our clients, so we're really invested in their success and we don't sort of dip into a project and disappear, so that's what I do for work.
Excellent, thank you. Mariana.
I'm Mariana von Lucken and I'm one of the tax partners here at HLB. I am a bit of a ring-in today, so I am subbing. And as a tax partner here, I guess I'm a business owner in a partnership. We share our profits, our pain and everything else. I have 18 husbands.
Harem of husbands.
I have to be careful when I go out and I say, you know, my partners, and I'm thinking, no, it's not my husband, no, it's the other one. Okay. But yeah, so that's me sort of in a nutshell.
Danielle Funston, I'm a partner at K&L Gates, which is a global law firm. I've lost count. We've got 900 or so partners worldwide, but we're essentially an American-based law firm. And I specialise in what's restructuring and insolvency, and whilst I see a lot of eyes glaze over, it's really exciting. It's an area of law I never thought I'd do, but strangely love it. Now, outside of doing that, I've got 2 small children, a 3 and 6-year-old. And unlike Amber, there's no way I'd ever consider or have time to run a marathon. Not on my radar, at least.
Thank you for quickly introducing yourselves. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions at the end of this. So Jodie, I'm going to start with you with a few questions. So I guess being a self-directed entrepreneur, leadership might look a little bit different for you. Can you sort of share a little bit about how you see yourself as a leader, because you don't have a big corporate behind you and you're doing your own thing in many ways, although you've got a partner now in your business?
So for me, leadership, well, let me do a little bit of a backstory. So back in 2002, I was working as a web designer, and 11 o'clock one morning, the boss stood up and said, the company's going under, you can go now. And we kind of looked at him and went, you mean now? And he said, yes. So we sort of stood up, packed up our things and walked out the door. So that was, I guess, the kickstart into me starting my own business. My hard drive had died that week as well. So what I did was I went straight to the bank and maybe pretended I was still employed, and I got a loan and I bought my first laptop, and that's how my business began.
And what year was that?
2002.
Okay.
So for me, it was, for me, it's been about, you know, the saying goes, courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. So I think looking back, there's been key points for sure where you have that feeling of, I don't know if this is going to work out. Am I going to do it or not? And you take that leap forward and you hit the ground running. So I think that's definitely been a bit of a theme for me. I think the other thing I learned from that is, in terms of leadership, maybe transparency and taking your team on a journey in terms of highs and lows. And I think it's a bit of a balance between you know, making people worried about their job security, but also having people understand how businesses are going and being part of the solution when there is a problem, which didn't happen for me. We were all definitely taken by surprise.
Absolutely. So how have you formed your leadership style? How's it evolved over those years since 2002?
For me, I think one of the big influencing factors was one early job that I had where I worked as a design lecturer at Shillington College, and one thing I learned there was how incredible it feels to be part of an amazing culture. And I think people spend far too much time at work for it not to be a fantastic place to be. So I think that's very much influenced how I am as a leader, and the fact that I prioritise culture probably above all else. And apart from that, you know, I think following your gut, and if you're coming from a place of integrity and kindness, and making sure that, you know, you have the right advisors when you need them, then it's really following your intuition.
And with the culture piece, is it just about Pizza Fridays and Frappuccino Tuesdays, or is it, what's culture for you in terms of building
It's
that?
a really good question, I think, because it's a bit of a buzzword, but for me, culture is, you know, it's the little decisions that you make every single day. And so for us, just to give you some examples in terms of culture, so the first is to be very much a values-based organisation. So we hire people to our values, we coach them to the values, and the values are really in the fabric of the business, so they're not just a poster that's sitting up on the wall that everyone forgets about. So every week in our team meeting, we'll put the values up and we will nominate stories across the business. So such and such has displayed this value, this is the story that goes with it, and it means that everybody knows what they are, to the point where they're self-assessing now. So they'll come up to me and say, I just had a really tricky conversation with a client and I chose kindness, and this is, you know, and they're proud. So I think that's really important. The other thing for us is flexibility, which is a hot topic and will only be bigger. But, you know, we're not a huge agency and we can't pay huge agency salaries, but we are very flexible, and we know family life matters, personal life matters. So for us, we've got quite a few part-time staff, and that can be mums and it can be dads or people that don't have children. We've got one staff member that works 4 days within 3 days and has a little Airbnb empire on the side. So, and I think, you know, with that we get a lot of commitment and a lot of loyalty from our staff because they really appreciate that they've got something with that they may not get elsewhere.
Have you sought out mentors or coaches throughout your business career? Have you looked for a more formal structure?
We have definitely brought in various people along the way, and some of that is, you know, workshops in terms of someone coming in and, you know, management coaching or communication styles and those sorts of things, but then also more regular sort of advisory. So I think for me, one person that's been hugely influential, which is going to sound completely staged and is not, is John Raphael, who's one of the partners here. So I've worked with him for over 10 years now, from the beginning when I think I had 2 staff, and he sat me down and said, you know, you'd be better off having a job, right? Because I was working really, really hard and making no money whatsoever.
A familiar small business.
Yes. So he's been there, you know, along the way, and now, you know, we need a lot less hand holding, but still have him on speed dial in case something unusual crops up.
And you've had a major change in your business. You've actually merged with another empire, if you like, a little empire.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that journey and what that's taught you as a leader. How do you become a leader when you suddenly have to share that stage, if you like?
Yes. I have to be very diplomatic because my business partner here. So Emma and Joe. So what happened was back in 2014, I realised that our business had a couple of weak spots, shall we say, and had known Emma for quite a while. We used to meet up, actually, in terms of advisory, we used to meet up as 2 people that owned agencies and have breakfast and talk about the trials and tribulations. And I walked out of one of those breakfasts and was like, the holes that she has, we sort of fill, and the holes that we have, she fills. And I rang her after the breakfast and I was like, this is a bit crazy, but I'm thinking maybe we should merge. And then that was the beginning of quite a long process. It was very considered in terms of how we fit together, in terms of cultures, and making sure that, I guess, we weren't going to break anything that we had invested a lot of time and energy into. And at the same time, Joe, who was in my business, bought in as well. So now we have 3 fabulous women running the business. And so the changes for me, I think there's, you know, huge positives in terms of being able to share the difficult times and the good times, and just have that council of peers where, you know, it can be quite isolating running a business on your own. But I guess apart from that, you know, you also need to now start campaigning for things that you want to get done, and you need to get consensus, so it's more of a democracy, which I assume is what it would be more like in a big corporate, even though I haven't had that experience. But so that can slow things down, but I firmly believe that it makes the business better as a result, because we've all got such different skills.
Terrific. Thank you. Mariana, we're going to throw it to you now.
Yeah, what's your business case?
You ready?
That's right. I get asked.
So you were on a couple of boards. You've mentioned to me the Education Committee for the Tax Institute and the Subcommittee for Women in Tax.
Correct, yes.
I'm going to start there. So why is it important for you to do that kind of leadership? Because you sound like you're pretty busy with your 18 husbands.
Yeah.
Why is doing more as a leader something that you value and you put time and effort into?
Yeah. Look, I've never really thought of it as that, you know, I'm spending my energy on something with the Tax Institute. The Tax Institute is, I don't know if any of you know, it sounds like it's in tax, right? And it's an association for tax professionals. No, and the Tax Institute is an association for tax professionals. So I think it's quite important to give back. You know, I haven't made it in my life or anything like that, but I think it's important. I'm happy with my life. I think I earn well. I've got to a position where, you know, I have a little bit more control in what I say and do. So I think it's important to give back to the profession that I work in. And the Tax Institute, they were looking for volunteers. It's all volunteers, you don't get paid. It's not like the boards. But, you know, they give you sandwiches and a drink. So, and at the end of the year, a bit of champagne, so, you know, it's fine. But it's important to give back, and also for women to have a voice. I was sitting around, I was chairing last year, and I've chaired previously. There's probably about 20 sitting around the table every month, and what we do is we sit around and talk about tax, and we say, well, what does a profession need? So does it need something on, I don't know, CFCs? Does it need something on small business rollovers? You name it. And we sit there and talk about, okay, who's going to be the subcommittee that's going to organise that? So it's fascinating stuff, right? And so it goes on. And so I'm sitting around the table last year and I'm noticing there's not as many women. The only women that were there were from the Tax Institute themselves. So there's 4 women from the Tax Institute, me chairing. I'm thinking, where's all our professional women? So I snapped to it, contacted a few colleagues of mine that are in tax, women, and now they've joined the board and there's a few of us around the table. So I think it's always been aware that you need that difference in voice. Women come from a different angle, I think, at times, so I've been told, so it must be true. And so the Women in Tax subcommittee was about getting more women involved in tax, but not just in tax, but in the profession. So giving back to the profession or hearing them, having their voice.
Okay, terrific. So corporate life is full of much more structure than perhaps Jodie's experience. And lots of people want to be leaders and get to the top and that kind of thing. Obviously, not everyone, that's their ambition, but for a lot of people it is. How's that kind of shaped you? Do you think you're naturally competitive or you just kind of get your blinkers on and do your best and do what you want to do and you sound like you're really happy with your lot? So has this journey kind of been directional like this or a bit like this? I mean, what's the leadership sort of journey you've been on?
Yeah, I really don't. I started off in a small practice, so one practitioner, and he's the loveliest guy. Loved working with him, and you got to see clients all the time, taxi drivers, talking mum and dad businesses. Really great experience. Unfortunately in Canberra, I was only down there studying, and I wanted to move back to Sydney, and he was going to pass, unfortunately. But so I moved to Sydney, and I wanted to see what it was like with the Big Four, so I went and worked with them for 5 years. And I truly would say to you, I thought, no, really, I don't like this atmosphere. I don't like the people I'm working with. I really would not want to be a partner in this organisation. So that was my feeling, and no disrespect, I had some lovely people I worked with, but they were competitive. And I don't think I'm a competitive person, actually. And then I came to Mann Judd. I loved Tony Fittler, who was here before. He wasn't managing partner at the time, but one of the tax partners. Really nice person, another person interviewed him. I really love the people. And I interviewed in some other mid-tier firms, came in their suits, they were all structured, and I didn't like that. I liked that sort of personal, cultural, relaxed. I didn't know it at the time. You don't know what you don't know. But really enjoyed that. So I joined them. And then while I was a supervisor, and we had a hierarchy system, supervisor, manager, and then partner. And then while I was there, and I thought, well, I'm really enjoying this. I really like the partnership, really enjoy the people. Why am I working on a salary? Why should I want to be, getting a bit of a profit? So that was my thinking. I wasn't really thinking,
And how far into being here did that sort of occur to you?
I was probably, I started in 2000. I became, as I mentioned before, they had manager and then partner. But in the time that I was here, they installed the director. So, another stage. I think that was for my benefit. But I'm being candid. I mean, if anything, I'm fairly honest and transparent. But it would have been probably a few years in, probably 3 years in or something like that when I was a manager. And I was thinking, I'm servicing clients, I'm looking after my people, but the team, there's got to be more. So what's that next step? So I was looking for that next step. So in 2008, I became a director, which is really funny, that word, because it's just a salary, basically. You don't have an equity share. And became a director, and then I thought, okay, well, what happens next? So how do I get to partner? And it was interesting because I had to go through, I had to get a mentor, because I was dealing with partners that were all male. So they probably didn't understand where I was coming from. So I think a coach helped me to slightly change my perspective, and it did, and it was very slight, and I can't really sometimes tell you exactly what it was, but it changed their perspective as well, which was great. So,
how did you find them, by the way? If someone hasn't actually had a coach or a mentor before and asked slightly different things, how did you actually seek them out?
Well, it's funny enough, I mean, I didn't really do anything sophisticated and search through the web and do, thousands of hours in analytics and who was the best coach. I'd like to say that, but no, it was as easy as a girlfriend of mine knew someone who was a coach, and she'd used her and I used her. That was as simple as that.
Recommendation.
Yeah, it was a recommendation, so.
Absolutely. So high-performing teams need leaders to do lots of things, and I think one of the things is listen. When you're a leader, there is a lot of opportunities, I guess, to speak and be heard, but you also have to listen. How have you developed that over the years, and how important has that been to your success, do you think, being able to listen to what other people are experiencing?
Yeah, I don't think I'm a good listener. I'm still working on it. It's still under construction. But I think I have observed more and reflected more and tried to listen more. So now, and that's constantly developing, I think, for all of us. But now when somebody comes in and has something to tell me, I sort of go, well, let's see, what do you think we should do? So I really probably ask them more of a question, and I listen to the answer. But I try and get people to resolve their own issues. But I'm very supportive. So I'm happy to be their sponsor, happy to go to that next step, action it. And I feel that when I listen to something, I need to action it straight away. Because what happens is we get on with our daily life, and then I've forgotten that some show blow is having a problem over here, and they're still having that problem. So I think it's listening and doing something with it if the person wants you or wants your help.
Sure, absolutely. Authentic leadership is kind of a bit of a buzz term that gets used quite a lot. But for you, what do you see as your authentic leadership style? If you had to give yourself kind of a bit of a report card, or maybe some of your peers could do that, but the idea that we'll do that after drinking drinks after. The idea of what's an authentic leader mean to you, and how do you display it to people? How do you make people know who you really are, besides the title you have and where you've got to in your career?
Look, I think people know who I am once they meet me, because I'm pretty upfront. I don't think I'm a rock or anything like that, in the sense, like bang, hello, it's more that in the sense I try to be myself, I try to be honest, I don't wear a face, and don't wear makeup normally either, lipstick. But I think what you see is what you get. I'm a pretty open book. I'm always fascinated that people aren't so open. I don't know what they're scared of. But then I've learned, I don't worry if someone doesn't like me. I mean, of course, it hurts you. But at the same time, you've got to move on. It's just important to be yourself, to be honest, authentic and transparent. And I try to do that with the people I work with, clients, staff, people around me.
Diversity and inclusion, do they matter? And if so, why?
Oh yeah, definitely. And obviously there's a lot of press about it. But I think, in a sense, we reflect back to HLB, we don't do it well. So we're not leaders in any of that. I've been a partner since 2008, and I'm still the only female partner. So that's nothing to be happy about. And also, I don't think when I hear women, say support each other, I don't think it's that I don't support other women. When I became a partner, I don't really think there was any other women trying to kick me off the ladder, or I was trying to pull someone off the other ladder. So I don't know where they went. It was a time period where they just disappeared. And I think the biggest crux, if I could say this, was women were there wasn't flexibility. So if women wanted to have kids, they didn't feel they could progress. And I've got to be honest with you, I think back in 2007 that would have been very true, because we had about 5 old partners retire. And the old went out, and the new came in. So sometimes it needs a bit of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I did say that, probably it's been circulated the past day or so, that media article about how badly we are doing at that inclusion and diversity piece. It's all still white Anglo-Saxon people at the top, and I'm kind of one of those people, but it's still frightening that we live in such a multicultural Australia, and that's the reality in 2018.
And we have a lot of unbiased behaviour, which we don't, unconscious behaviour, biased behaviour, that we don't realise we do. So we call everyone guys, there's all these little things, but you can't get too tied up about it. What I think we have been doing well, I think we've got a lot more women sitting at that manager level, and we've got one female director, and I've got to say tax is leading the way, because we've got a partner and we've got a director and we've got lots of female managers. So I don't know what the other divisions are doing. I was going to go and chat with them. Girls. But we've developed my sounding board for many reasons, for our female clients, to build a community, and also for our female staff. I think it's been such a great program. I mean, I don't think it's a profit thing. It's more of a program that develops our people. and you never underestimate that. We've had some lovely women in the room that work with HLB, and I've just seen them blossom from the whole event because they've just got out there, been proactive, they've got out there and presented, you know, they've gone out there and networked, they've been asked to do a lot of things and they're doing it in their own time. They don't complain, they get on with the job. And that's been a great thing to bring to the partners, and they've been very supportive of it.
You love insolvency, which is fantastic, but it's obviously a very male-dominated, traditional kind of legal career. You must have had some twists and turns. I know a little bit about your story, and I won't sort of steal your thunder on that, but you know, what's it really taught you to actually want to operate and be successful in that environment as a leader? What has it really taught you?
What's it taught me? I guess it's taught me to be courageous at times, and with respect to my story, it was a sink or swim type scenario. I was very happy at a large global law firm. I was on track. I was enticed to go to the firm that I'm at now, which was a very big step for me, and I did get over there only to realise that I was recruited with a plan to be taken by those partners to what was going to be a boutique startup, and they wanted to be invested in that. So that just threw my world. You know, I'd sort of been uprooted. I was on the path. I was happy. And I made the decision at that point in time not to follow those people, and I stayed where I was. And the scenario and the reality was I was the most senior person of quite a large team with a very, very big practice to run in a global law firm. So I wasn't partner yet.
How long ago was that? Just in terms
that was 4.5 years ago. But what I did do was just bunker down and really try to lead a team that I didn't know that well. So I had, you know, graduates up to senior associate levels, people that had been in that firm for a long time. And whilst I probably didn't think about myself as being a leader, I was really doing all I could to ensure that the staff and the team were happy, that they understood that there was a future for them, that things would continue on. So now that I reflect back on it, that's probably the time that I really had to be a leader. And that's probably when I was really tested. So the good story is that all went well. Everyone stayed. You know, we continued to work. We generated good work. We got new work. And in a way, I guess I proved myself to the rest of the partnership and was asked to join the partnership. The timing of that was great. It was announced the day before my second daughter was born. So it all sort of threw. I was getting a lot of congratulations and I wasn't sure what it was, my daughter or the partnership. I quite wasn't sure, so it was a bit of a busy time. But in respect to being insolvency in what's a male-dominated area, Kirsten Pharmacy, just to call her out too, she's also a female insolvency partner, and there are not all that many of us. And to that end, I guess both Kirsten and I sit on a committee for our industry where there's 15 people on the committee and we're the only females, just to put that into perspective. And the good thing about that is I think, I guess further to Marianne's point, we do have a different voice, and I think in the areas and the disputes that we work on, they can be very, very contentious. Bit of a voice in those sorts of scenarios. So I think women can do well in what's a male-dominated area, and I think with respect to leadership, I guess given my trajectory into where I've got, I think places like HLB and places like K&L Gates, those corporate structures fail in respect to leadership. I think there's a misnomer that, you know, you go up the hierarchy and you go up the ladder and you get to the top, so you must be a leader. That's not correct. To me, a leader, and I don't know if I'm a leader, I don't know. I'd like to think I am because I'm sitting here.
It's interesting you're shying away from that, because I think you obviously are, but obviously there's a little bit of questioning in that as well. Is that kind of just always the journey that you're on in the position you've achieved?
Well, I think I try to foster leadership, and I guess, you know, like Kirsten, we're two of a handful of women in the industry, so we probably have to step up and be a bit of a role model for younger women in the industry and let them know that we can
work and succeed and do well in what's quite a tough male-dominated industry. So we probably are thrown into that leadership sphere. Insofar as what I do back in the office is I really encourage my junior staff and I really push them. Having the ability to network and do the BD, and I give them a lot of leeway. So from a very early age, from graduate stage, I expect, and I sort of set this a bit of a KPI, that the graduates go out and grab a coffee with a client or whoever it is, because I think that only sets in track the ability to be able to network, confidence, and with that, you know, the potential to become a really good leader down the track.
Absolutely. Being successful often means people feel, like you've mentioned, maybe less accessible, or they want to keep it all to themselves because they've worked so hard to get there. It sounds like you're much more collaborative than that. Is that sort of part of your leadership style or your legacy that you would like to sort of be remembered for down the track? Is that something you work on actively?
Yes, definitely. And that's, I think, the failing of some partners in the corporate space. So I work very collaboratively with the team. They always have access to clients direct. I like to get them involved, and I guess further to Jodie's point, I like everyone to be vested in the story and feel that they're involved and be appreciated and valued. So I guess that probably is my leadership style.
Terrific. Before we throw it open to the audience, I'm going to ask you each the same question, and if we pass the mic back to Jodie, she can kick off. And the final question is, what would you tell yourself in a few sentences, your 18-year-old self, about your leadership journey? If you could talk now to your 18-year-old self, what would you be saying to her? 18-year-old Jodie.
I think I would probably be saying, just trust your gut, because it is always right. And apart from that, this is coming from a much smaller business perspective, be very good at harassing people for money, because cash flow is very difficult. Be a bit of a tyrant.
Great advice, Mariana.
I think I would say that, you know, I think be yourself. I think, you know, when you're younger, you always put up all these barriers. I think just be yourself. Don't be afraid to be yourself. And just enjoy it. And, you know, just, what have you got to lose in the end?
My advice would be just to view everything as an opportunity. So when things don't necessarily go your way, or, you know, a team disintegrates or something happens, I think it's a bit of a test to prove yourself and view it as an opportunity.
Thank you so much for attending this evening. I hope you enjoyed the event, and please enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you so much.